What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Daily Groomer Podcast. It's a new year, so we've got on a whole new set of guests this year. For this episode, I'm extremely excited to sit down with Greg Longe or Longe. I should have asked you how to say your last name, Greg, before we got on this, but we got right on into it. Greg is the CEO of Phoenix Franchise Brands, the company behind Furryland. Most of you guys have seen him. If you've been out in Vegas recently, you've seen him. He's been the CEO there for 3.5 years now. And we brought Greg on today to learn a little bit more about his franchising story and the Furryland story. So, Greg, thanks for joining us. Before we get into it, how do I say your last name?
Longe.
Longe. There we go.
Yep.
Cool. Great, dude. Really excited. I know we've been trying to get this one on the calendar for a while now. We had Nick Fields from Furryland on a little while ago, and he provided the audience with a pretty good kind of at least intro class on what Furryland is and what it is you guys are doing. But I want to get everyone up to speed with you because you're kind of the man, the myth here behind Furryland. Let's get up to speed. So in November of 2023, you guys reached the milestone of, I believe, 100 vans on the road. It's 2025 now. What was the 2024 update? How far did we get?
We got to 170.
170. Holy cow.
Yeah.
All right. So 170 in what? A little over 4 years?
No, we actually had the first van on the road in July of 22. That was the first van. And
so a little over.
Now we've done that in a pretty short period of time. It's been exciting. It's very proud of the folks that we have here. We've got an awful lot of experience behind Furryland. We had a great business model that Nick put together. Well, I can get into that in a few minutes. But at Phoenix, we do our best to keep the founders in the business and have an equity position for them. And it's because, they're the magic. They're the people that created all the duplicatable kinds of things that you need when you're creating a franchise and you're going to run it across the country. Everything's got to be in such a granular way, duplicatable. Right down to the very 10th degree. And Nick's done it better than anybody. He just he's kind of our mad scientist out there, and he couldn't be a nicer guy. You always hope that it works out this way, but Nick's become one of my best friends, and I don't say that loosely. He's just a great guy. I'm going to see him before the end of the month, and he's terrific. But Furryland's been exciting. We've grown very rapidly. We're in 72 markets across the country, and so that's great growth in a pretty short period of time. And we have franchisees that have anywhere from just getting started 1 or 2 vans to franchisees that have 20, and we've done it in a pretty short period of time. But we've got a lot of history that and a great team here. That's really the story. That's how we've grown so fast and so well.
Well, congrats on the success so far. Obviously it's pretty incredible just from a metrics level that you guys have hit 170 in 3-ish years or so. Lots of questions, but you did one of the things you kind of alluded to that was a key to the success outside tons of reasons, I'm sure. But one thing that my mind just immediately went to as you were talking there was like, you used the word duplicatable, right? And I know that's obviously important for you in terms of a franchising element, but can you talk to me a little bit about why it's important that things are duplicatable to help you grow and scale a business?
Sure. With a business format franchise, the franchisee expects to have a brand and system and ongoing support. The consumer expects a customer experience that, we live in a pretty transient society. People get relocated, people move to better places. I lost all my kids to warm weather. I live in Michigan, and all it means is that they're just a lot smarter than I am. They all went to better places than Michigan. I happen to be a Detroiter born and raised, and yeah, it's snowy, and I swore this morning 3 times when I went out to get the car. But yeah, I lost my kids to warmer places. But as you move around, and your dog needs grooming, you want to make sure that the experience that you have in Nashville is the same experience that you have in Detroit and Columbus and Indianapolis and Boston and Tampa and all around the country. And that experience means that the vehicle that pulls up, it is not a shabby beater. It's not half rusted out. These are all top of the line upfitted vehicles that they look the part. And if you show up with a dirty, awful looking Furryland van, and what does that say about the job we're going to do for your dog, right? We pride ourselves in being very professional and properly packaged. Somebody comes up to the door to get Tony or Polly. Those are our 2 miniature schnauzers, by the way. They're named after the Sopranos. Polly is with a W, P-A-W. And Tony thinks he's really something else. Tony's afraid of his own chat. But so when the groomer comes up to get Tony or Polly, they're properly packaged too. I mean, they're wearing the brand. They're dressed accordingly. The inside of that van is it's perfect. Sometimes my wife, who's actually the president of Furryland, my wife will take the dogs out there, and it's just impeccable. And the vehicles look great, and rain or shine, it doesn't matter. First thing you've got to do is look the part. Second thing you've got to do is you have to make sure that you're hiring people that really love animals. They just love them, and that's a big part of why they're in the grooming business, is because they want to take care of them. Now, there's good money in this business too. I mean, that goes without saying. I think everybody in your audience will understand that from a grooming perspective. And there's some wonderful autonomy when you're a mobile groomer, right? Just dramatically different than working in a grooming salon or one of the big box stores. But everything from stem to stern has to meet the customer's expectations. We are not the cheapest deal in town, but we are the best deal in town, and we're the fastest growing. And the culture and in every single location, every single marketplace, that's always prioritized. We bring people in that own the franchise, that they love pets. They love people that like to work around pets, and they love the people that are the pet parents. All of that stuff is a pretty good recipe, Alex, for having a really nice environment, a really nice climate for your career. So that's a long-winded statement, but the uniformity piece, the customer expectation. Whether you get the quarter pounder in Baton Rouge or whether you get it in Chicago, it's got to be the same quarter pounder.
Love it. Or Detroit. Yeah, that's great. So I was just taking notes as you were talking there, Greg, and it seems like a lot of that stuff, these keys that apply to building a successful business, apply whether you're at 170 vans or at 1 van, and they help you scale to that next. And so as you guys are looking under 2025, scaling to, who knows, 200 vans, as someone else out there is scaling from 1 to 2 or 2 to 3, I would imagine the same keys apply for you or for them. I've got 2 written down, and I want to continue live. Let's keep building this list here. I've got hiring people that love dogs. That was a great one. And then building high quality customer experience that can be replicated across your locations, vans, etc. What else are some things that we can continue to add to this list?
Well, I think you have to have people that really enjoy what they do and have a great work ethic. And let's face it, the grooming business, the Herculean task that's put on the groomers, it's hard work. There's nothing easy about this job. I mean, some of these dogs are behemoths. I grew up with 5 sisters, a brother, and a Saint Bernard. And to get that fella in a grooming van, you can forget it. But we do. We get him in there, and but there's other challenges along the way. Anytime you're dealing with the public, I mean, you've got to have kind of thick skin. I mean, there's It doesn't matter if you're a groomer or you're working for Macy's. You got to have a little thick skin no matter what. And so I think that, having a good work ethic, being excited about your job every day, interested in making more money and getting that one more groom if you've got time, that separates good from great. I mean, the people that just love their job, but they also want to make a good living. And if they can take care of just one more pet that day, that's good for everybody. I think when you develop a personal relationship, which is also another trait, I think, of a good grooming business, but a good groomer. Paulie and Tony, our two characters, they're not near as worried when Cheyenne comes out to pick them up anymore. They kind of know her now, but that's nice for the dogs. The punchline is it's great for the parents. When the parents know that, oh my gosh, they're going to come back just as dapper as they've ever been in the last 30 days. Man, that's a home run. It makes everybody in the house happy.
Love that. Nice for the dogs, great for the parents. I'm going to steal that, Greg. You talked about some of the challenges that you might face as a business owner. I'm sure you guys have faced quite a few growing Furryland into what it is today. Talk to me about some of those big challenges and what you guys did to overcome.
I think the first thing you've got to do if you're going to grow a national brand or if you're going to grow, a local independent business, you got to take the position that you always have to improve. You always have to evaluate what you're doing, and you've always got to strive to get better. So in our mind, we're only as good as the last man we put on the road. We're only as good as the last franchise owner that we brought into the organization. We're only as good as the last training class. We're only as good as the last dog we groomed nationally. You've got to get better at everything you do and all the things that counts. And as you're scaling a business, we look at pinch points, and everybody's got different pinch points because it depends on the size of the business. For us, we started Furryland at a sort of an interesting time. Where COVID was kind of it wasn't quite in the rearview mirror, but everybody knew it was something that we were all going to live with. The other thing that we were dealing with, though, was the supply chain shortage. And the supply chain shortage, it made, finding vehicles on a reasonable amount of time, getting them upfit and getting them moved over to our franchisees so we could start the business. Well, that was pretty interesting. So those pinch points we really focused on, and we came up with a lot of different solutions in order to really expand the breadth and scope of how that whole thing happened. And I'm a big fan of putting dedicated resources against pinch points. So I've been doing this, Alex, for 40 years, and I've been around, and I know how to scale a brand. And there's a lot of I's in that statement. I don't really know anything. I just know the right people to put around me that are smart, that have been doing this for a long time. And
totally makes sense.
I've been so fortunate to have great teams of people around me, and and we just finished chapter 2 of Furryland, and we're starting chapter 3. And every page of that book, we again focus on what was the last couple of things we did: training, vehicles. Everything has to get better. Everything has to get better. And so I think that's a really big part of our success. We hire people that care about dogs. On the corporate level, the people that are supporting the franchisees, I've got probably the best looking retriever you've ever seen in your life 2 offices down from me right now. We have dogs at the office here. We have cats. We got all kinds of stuff going on here. But
love it. Back to your first point. Yep. Hire pet people. Yep. You talk about pinch points. It seems like that's pretty important to you as you grow your business, whether it's in Furryland or some of your past endeavors, right? Talk to me about how you identify these pinch points, because obviously it seems like the overarching and the overwhelming solution here is to find people that are experienced, that are passionate, and assemble the team to help you battle past those pinch points. But let's take a step back. How do you identify those pinch points?
For us as franchisors, I'll give you those, and I give it to you from the business owner's perspective too. So, and a lot of these things are similar. From a franchisor perspective, the first thing you want to do is get your brand out there nationally, and so you've got to scale. You got to bring the right people in, and you have pinch points in as much as how do you get the word out there that Furryland is such an amazing business? How do you get the word out there that, we are solving a big time need? How do you get the word out there that this is an industry that's underserved? There's far more groomers than there are, far more people that want their dogs groomed than there are groomers. I almost said that backwards. I do that from time to time. So grooming is a wonderful industry, and so how do you find people that really you want them to understand that this is a business that can grow exponentially, and people can really grow an empire in this world. Mobile grooming is it's amazing. We live in a society and a world right now where, 2 weeks ago, I was running out of toothpaste. I ordered it on Amazon. It was there before dinner. That's just silly. That's just silly. And so we're used to, as consumers, having all the services at the front door. And if you're a dog owner and you spend a little time taking your dog someplace to get groomed or bathed, you know what a nightmare that is. And yep, it costs more money to have it brought to your front door. And yep, we are worth it. And the mobile grooming professionals, we are all worth it. This is just a wonderful Amazon-centric kind of service that fits in today's society today. So the pinch points, first it's finding the right people. We kind of overcame that. We've got quite an onslaught of people that want to be in the business today. So, we got through that. The vehicle piece, we got through that. I think you have to put dedicated efforts, whether you're a one-person business or for us, we've got 500 W-2s here. We're a pretty big organization. How do you answer the phone? What's the thing the franchisee needs the most? Well, they're running the business. The best thing we could do for them is answer the phone, book the job, schedule the groomers, change the schedule for the groomers, change the schedule for the customers, help with training on every front, whether it's groomers or franchisees in terms of the technology we use. Those are the answers to all those things, but they were at one point a pinch point. And so, we've got a national call center that are all W-2 people. We don't send any of that stuff offshore. And we onboard our customers for all our franchisees in a similar fashion. We go at it in a similar fashion in terms of the way that dogs are groomed. We have great training programs, but all of those things at one point were pinch points. And you identify them by the time in which it takes a franchisee to open, the time in which it takes a franchisee to break even, the time of which it takes a franchisee to hire a groomer. And the latter of those is an ongoing pinch point. We've solved all the rest of them. The groomers are still the probably the biggest pinch point in the business, but this is not new. In my 40 years, labor has always been the most critical part of any business I've ever owned or ran. And I was in several other businesses, service orientated, where the world just sort of evolves around your ability to hire great people. But, that's 50% of the battle. The other 50% is, how do you keep them? How do you give them a great environment? And how do you retain them? And we just had a discussion about this again this morning. We are always looking at that, and communication and recognition and compensation and a good work environment. All of those things have to be there. You have to treat them, you got to treat them like they're your most important asset, because they are.
Right.
Happy groomers make happy customers, and happy customers make a good, solid business that will grow. If you end up with a leaky bucket in your workforce, I tell you, that's just you're never going to get it where you want to get it.
Yeah, no, I think you hit the nail on the head with retention. That's I feel like the ugly stepsister, right? Where no one really talks about all that much. Once you find someone though, that's probably, the harder of the two things. With that though, you guys have hired great people. You said, labor has been a pinch point and, for your entire career. What tips or advice do you have for others out there that are struggling to hire great groomers or to find that next manager, a receptionist, even admin, etc. Right?
I think like any other HR kind of activity, it's it's something that you got to have some courage when you're hiring people. And I really don't care if it's groomers or, I was the CEO of Molly Maid for a long time, and we had to hire people that were going in there, doing some work that is not necessarily the most glamorous stuff to do. But, you want to hire somebody that you're going to be able to have stick in your organization. So it's so important to look beyond, hey, I can do this dog, I can do that dog. Yep, those are all the nuts and bolts, and that's all got to be there. I'm always on time. That's good. You got to look beyond all that. You got to look at their heart and soul and make sure that it's somebody that, in the way that you conduct yourself, that you can make them happy. And in my view, I think you have to have, in any service industry, I got in businesses at a very young age, and for all 9 years of that business, I was the youngest employee. I hired everybody that was older than me. I was 21 years old when I started. So you better make darn sure that you're in that scenario, and make darn sure that you have a servant attitude, because everybody knows more than you. They're older than you, but you're the boss. So in the grooming business, I think you have to find people with the kind of qualities that you're going to be able to take care of through the years. I think you've got to be very emotionally intelligent to be in a service business this year, this kind of era in business. And I'm so proud of our franchisees and the people that support them, because they are. You know what? Things happen. People get sick. Things happen. Kids need rides to school, and activities are in the evening, and kids do sports, and kids do dance, and things happen in life where you have to have some empathy for people, and you got to be patient, and you have to be understanding. It's a two-way street. That employee has to recognize that they have a responsibility. So if and this isn't any different in the grooming business than it is anywhere else. If you've got somebody that's a job hopper, how are you going to make that person happy? They're going to leave you. If they're leaving for $1, they're going to leave you too. Somebody else can offer them another $1. So right. It takes courage to say no sometimes, but sometimes that's the cheapest thing to do. Training's expensive, and you can get the best groomer in the world, but they still have to fit your organization. But Alex, I really comes down to recognition. I think comes down to being a good servant to your business and the people that work there, not a pushover. There's a big difference. Can't be a pushover, but you gotta take care of them, and then you take care of them, and they'll stay forever. And that's how you get those extra grooms in the evening, because they're happy doing what they're doing.
Right, and I'm sure great people is a large factor in what differentiates you guys from the others out there. But I'm curious what else you guys think about on a daily basis, or even, as you're doing 2025 planning, on what differentiates you and Furryland from the others. One thing I want to point out is, I always say on this podcast that, and you've already said it here, there's more dogs than groomers to go around, right? And so everyone in this industry, I'm sure as mindset of abundance, where there's no, I'm not stealing a dog from you, you're not stealing a dog from me. But that being said, it still is important to build a brand identity that customers can relate to. So to wrap that all the way around back to my original question, what differentiates you guys from the other mobile grooming companies out there? Or at least what are you guys trying to do that differentiates yourself?
I think it's a long answer, but that's one of my specialties, as you're kind of picking up on it. It takes me 20 minutes to say hello sometimes, but
that's the Detroit Midwest in you.
I can't help it. Go Lions! I just got to throw a few of those in there. I think that the thing that really differentiates us on so many different fronts is we do more for our franchisees, and we do more for our groomers. And I think for our franchisees and for our groomers, here's a good example. We're hiring right now some internal corporate staff to support groomers. And it sounds like, well, doesn't everybody have it? No, they don't. We have people that support the franchisees. We have people that support the customer base. But we're bringing on a staff and a department that are all groomers that They've got 10 years experience, that they've been grooming dogs for a long time. When a groomer is on the job and something happens, they don't want to talk to one of our business support people. They don't necessarily want to talk to the franchisee because, our franchisees are the best people in the organization. Our groomers are the best people in the organization, but our franchisees have never groomed a dog. So that's just the way that is. It's a business, and they love the business and they love their staff, but they're the last person that's going to get the call when something happens on the truck with a pet. So we're hiring a staff right now that's going to do nothing but support those kinds of issues nationally. We're big enough at this point where that's something that we need. We want to give the attention to the groomers, and I think that's a great thing for the franchise owners too. Having recognition programs and getting involved in some of those things today, so that we have periodicals that go out to the groomers that are in our organization, and we recognize the superstars. And the superstar is defined as, sure, there's a volume component in it, but it's tenure and it's having a willingness to train others. And our new programs coming out in 25 that are going to create new employees. We've got just a wonderful business owner in Texas that she sits on our advisory council, and this is a very, very smart person. And she owns a business that does very, very well. She actually owns a couple of businesses, and it's her. She's the straw that stirs the drink, and her employees will never leave, and that's just the way she is. And she found somebody with no grooming experience, zero. They right out of college, and she made a deal with them. I'm gonna pay you to do some ride-alongs. I'm gonna pay you cheap, and you're gonna get into dog bathing, and then you're gonna get into grooming, and then you're gonna work for me, and you're gonna stay with me, and I'll take care of you. But I need your commitment that you're going to work hard and you're going to be dedicated to this. So we're building that out into a national program where we can take people that, they just really like the idea of having a career and not being a veterinarian, but they want to be around animals. And you'd be surprised how many people are like that. But they never got an opportunity to groom dogs. They never got an opportunity to be an apprentice or even an opportunity to be a bather. And so we're opening up the door, and we've got a curriculum designed. That nice fellow, Nick Field, my pal out in Las Vegas, he put all this together, and the franchisees, we have an advisory council. And as a franchisor, the best ideas, if you go back a long time ago, Alex, long before you were born, McDonald's didn't have a drive-through, and they didn't have breakfast, and they didn't have a lot of the stuff they have. That all came from the franchisees. That's the best place to get the idea. These are all people that are running grooming businesses all across the country. So we have a council of these folks that come up with the ideas, and then we turn them into national programs that are scalable and duplicatable, that are good for the franchisees and good for the company. So
I like that a lot. I mean, that goes back to your theme too about how do you solve pinch points? You bring in experts that know what they're doing and have seen a thing or two. It applies outside of pinch points too. I mean, how do you be proactive? How do you come up with new ideas, et cetera? You find people that know what they're doing and they advise.
I think it's great to bring new people on, but you can't bring new people on in a vacuum. You've got to have made those great hires of those leaders in your organization that, they've got a nice way about them. The amazing thing about Furryland is that you're already starting with people that love pets. I'm wildly biased. Life is a series of dogs, right? Whether we like it or not, if you like dogs, life is a series of dogs. And you might have a lot of them, and it's a hard thing, and it's a great thing. But life is a series of dogs. And I just feel that people that are around animals and love animals, I'm sorry, I just think they're nicer people. I think they got bigger hearts. That's just the way it is. I'm very biased, but it's my whole life. It's my observation. So, I think that if you make those really great hires on some of your senior people, and you keep them happy and you recognize them and you reward them and sometimes it doesn't have to be, here's a great big check because you were the best groomer last month. That helps. That's a good idea. But, sometimes it's just, having a group sort of session and meeting where you recognize that person for all their accomplishments. People never leave because they don't like their compensation. People leave because they don't like the environment, their boss, that's why people leave. And yeah, the comp's in there someplace too, but that isn't number one. But I think that if you have great leaders in your organization that are willing to train and they're willing to teach, and they're not paranoid about bringing on that next employee, yeah, that's how you build a great organization.
Awesome. There's been something that's sitting in my notes here haunting me ever since you said it. So I'm just going to go ahead and ask it. You talked about chapter 2 of Furryland's closed. We're opening and writing chapter 3 right now. Tease me. What does that look like?
I think there's a financial component to it. We want every franchisee in the Furryland system to be profitable no matter when they opened, even if they're just opening now. And usually it takes a little while for any kind of business to be profitable. So by the end of the year, we want every franchisee in the system to be not only cash flow positive, but really starting building some legacy money. We want the groomers. We want the retention on the groomers to be higher than chapter 2, and much higher than chapter 1. So we want to be the place to go when groomers want to really kind of have a position where, this is the best place I've ever worked. We want to be able to have the employees say that this is going to really date me, but we want to be the Cadillac of groomer employers. How's that?
They sell cheeseburgers.
Yeah. Well, it's
right. I get what you're saying.
Those are the goals. From the standpoint of the HR piece of things. I mean, from a numbers perspective, we want to be in 150 markets. We've got some offshore opportunities that we're pursuing right now to go abroad. We've got that pretty well dialed in. We want the franchisees to have all their hopes and dreams come true, but we want to build a national team of groomers that is very proud of what they do, and they're just never going to leave. So giving an environment like that to the people that do the real work, that's a big part of chapter 3. Right.
150 markets. I don't think I had down. I know you guys were at 170 vans, right? How many markets are the current 170 in?
70.
70. Okay, so we're gonna double the amount of markets that we're in.
Yeah.
Holy cow! And is that? I know you mentioned some offshore opportunities, but of the 150, or which would be the remaining 80,
that's just the U.S. All in the U.S. Yeah.
Oh my gosh! All right. Well, that leads me to my next question then. How do you guys pick which markets or how many vans in each market? How do you plan that? I guess.
Yeah, we started with a national strategy. We didn't decide to, open our first business in Phoenix, but that's where it was. So we have a national strategy, and we're not looking to cherry pick anymore. Some of our big markets that we're going to open this year are going to be Illinois, California, Washington State, and then fill in all the rest of them. We're in every other state except the Dakotas. We're going to fill them all in, and there's just a lot of opportunity yet. We're going to do it with a few people from outside the system, but we're going to do it with the lion's share of those new units. There'll be new people in California, new people in Illinois and Washington State, but a lot of these other markets, we really want to do it with our existing partners who are interested in expanding, interested in growing their business, and just moving them from one metropolitan area, just keep going. So
that makes
we've got
sense. They already know the book, right? It's just, hey, how do I take you from one market and maybe 2 vans to 2 markets and 4 vans?
Yep, that's the story, and we're also beginning to open up some locations corporately too. We're not going to do too many, but we're going to do a few. I think it's important.
Why do you do that?
You do it because you want to keep your finger on the pulse, and
okay.
I wouldn't do it without Nick. Nick's the operator, so
he's the man.
Yeah, he is the man. Nick's going to be on the sharp end of all that, but so we'll run some good enterprises. We're careful in the markets that we're going to pick, and like I said, we're not going into the the mobile grooming business in a big way. We're going into we are franchisors of mobile grooming. And you can't get those core competencies confused, because just because, Nick, case in point, Nick wanted to franchise his business, and that's a completely different discipline, and that's where we came in. But Nick is also operator extraordinaire, and as it stands right now, we've got some franchisees that are, knocking on his door in terms of volume and performance and so forth. But Nick is still Nick's still the king. But he's going to lose his title, I think, this year. We've got some folks really, really driving hard. But Nick is my partner, and Nick's the one that will drive all those corporate operations.
Makes sense. I want to go back to something you said earlier. A big goal of Chapter 3 is to make each franchisee profitable on day one. Much easier said than done, I would imagine. Talk to me about some things to think about to make that happen. What are some best practices to make sure that each franchisee is profitable on day one?
It won't be day one because it's going to take some time, but we want to get franchisees cash flow positive in a shorter period of time than we have. And that's one of those things as a franchisor that you always do. The franchisees that opened up 3 years ago, it took them longer than the franchisees that opened up the following 6 months and the following 6 months and the following 6 months. So as we start Chapter 3, there are things that you can do in terms of the most effective way to acquire a customer, the least expensive way to acquire a customer, to work on volume and discounting with the vehicles that we secure, and the upfitting and the whole process. All of that stuff, time is money, to work on making sure we're pretty involved in hiring the staff with franchisees, in particular new ones, but we're pretty involved overall in making sure that we have the right people in the right seats on the bus for the franchisees. All of those things are very important to do. The customer acquisition piece is incredibly important, but there's like you said, there's a lot more dogs than there is groomers, but it's the cost of that. And the cost of that, every month we bring that down.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, you get better with each new, let's call it wave or chapter in this case. As we round the corner here into 2025, I'm sure you've asked yourself this, and you've been in the game long enough I know your mind's wondering about this. So where do you see mobile grooming evolving over the next 5, 10 plus years?
That's a great question. There's so many different evolutions to the industry. I think there's some really interesting, very eco-friendly mobile grooming vans coming down the pike, and I think that we're getting close to giving a few a test. Reducing your carbon footprint's a good thing. I just think every responsible person ought to have that in their list of priorities someplace. And so I think that's a change that people are going to go through. I think that the whole education of creating more mobile groomers quicker, which is a big focus of 23. I think that's going to happen over the next 10 years. I think there's going to be a lot more people that are in the industry, because I'll be the first guy to admit it's hard work, but something, it's good work, and it's a good career. And I think that there, as more people find out about it, and some of the real advantages and joys to being a mobile groomer, I think it's going to be attractive. And so I think just working harder at the pieces of it, but the communication of it, so that you can attract more people to this kind of field, I think is really important. We own Fetch Pet Care, and we walk about close to 40,000 dogs a week across the country.
Jeez.
And we bought that in 2020, and it's the largest independent dog walker company in the country. And so we very deliberately wanted to get into the mobile grooming business because the customers are similar. And I think that there's been businesses that try to put those things together, but we have a few franchisees across the country that do both, but they don't really run it as one business. There's still some separation because you can create dog walkers in a shorter period of time than you can find and create dog groomers. It's just a different person, a different mindset. And they're both at their very soul and their heart, they're the same. They're just big-hearted, wonderful people that love animals. But one has got a skill set that the other one doesn't have. But at any rate, I think that mobile grooming, I can see a time where there's some overlap with dog walking too. I don't think we're going to take dog walking on as a mobile grooming service, but because we own the other side of the house, I think that the synergies between the two and the customer acquisition piece, I think there's lots of really good cross-pollination of services and so forth. I think that the education and the acquisition of groomers is going to change dramatically. I think it's going to get easier, and not overnight, but the ability to really begin to create your own workforce over time. We can't live without those veterans, those leaders, those big-hearted, wonderful teachers. But over time, I think you're going to be able to onboard people and put them in the right environment. I also think that there's probably going to be some consolidation over time. I think that some of the bigger brands, it's not really part of our strategy. We like to grow them new. But I know that some of the bigger brands have thoughts about buying independents, and I think that that's a way to go. We like to build them from the ground up. We like to get the people from the ground up, and we like to make sure that we've got a shot at the best groomers in the market.
Got it. If I were to hand you a crystal ball, Greg, in true New Year's fashion here, and ask you what your big bet is for this coming year, what would that be? And I know you guys are currently writing chapter 3, and chapter 3 might even be more than 2025. But if I was to, and maybe not even a crystal ball, if I was to give you my chips at the poker table and say, all right, Greg, make a big bet for me, what's that big bet for Furryland?
I mean, it's not a stretch. I mean, we're here on a podcast talking about mobile grooming. I put them all on red, mobile grooming.
All right.
I mean, you can't find another industry. We're crazy, nuts, passionate about this in Furryland. You can't find another industry with the same sort of mindset people with customer acquisition. Oh, we bemoan how much it costs per customer. Look, you can get them. We're in a lot of different businesses here in Phoenix. We have 400 franchisees across 8 brands, and we're in home service in a big way. We're in the pet business in a big way. Furryland has got so many wonderful tenets about it that every business would love to have. And we don't go into businesses where there's just umpteen competitors. And that's why we're in the mobile grooming business. It's early on. I think it's going to be different in 10 years. But right now, it is still early on. And customers, when they move into a new marketplace, they got to go online and they got to make 2 or 3 phone calls just to get somebody to take a new dog. Lots of people won't take new customers, which is silly, but it's capacity. I bet the house on Furryland. So happy to do that for you, Alex. I already did.
You already did it, and I'm just giving you my tips to do it too. Greg, thanks so much for coming on. As we kind of round out here, I want to give you a chance to shameless plug Furryland. If anyone out there is listening, how can they get a hold of you, reach out to the franchisee support team or franchise support team rather? Plug it all right now. How do they find you? Links, etc.
They can send me an email on at greg@phoenixfranchisebrands.com, and we'll take good care of you. That's the best place to get more information on Furryland. We've got markets open. You don't have to live in that market if you don't want to. We've got really good systems that really help you perform no matter where you're located logistically. It's just an amazing business. In the last 40 years, I put 5,200 folks in business in 51 countries. So that's a lot of people. That's a lot of franchisees around the world. And you'd be hard pressed to find something as exciting as where Furryland is today. I think the best is yet to come. The signal is, we're putting our money into some corporate operations too, which we've done a little bit of that in the past in other brands, but this is just a marvelous business, and I think it's got legs globally. And so, I I'd bet the house on Furryland, and I bet the house on this wonderful team of people outside my door here that do such a great job.
Awesome. Well, Greg, thanks for coming to the table today. Really appreciate it.
Having me. This was a lot of fun. I hope to do it again with you sometime soon.
Yeah, it was nice to get to meet you, and we'd love to have you guys on again. Like Greg said, if anyone wants to reach out to Greg and for some reason can't, get a hold of me, and I'm more than happy to connect you guys. Outside of that, Greg, we'll see you again soon.
Alex, it's been a pleasure. Thanks a lot, and Happy New Year, everybody. Go Lions.
Go Lions. That's the pod.